Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review of the season 1 finale of Invincible. This was the 8th episode of Amazon's animated adaptation of the comic book series created by Robert Kirkman. Now there will be spoilers in this episode, so beware. Just in case you haven't yet caught up with all the episodes, it might be a good idea to just quickly catch up with the previous entries throughout the season and then come back to this review. Now just to previously recap what happened over the previous episode, everybody had come to the realization that Omni-Man, or Nolan, was the one responsible for killing the Guardians. Cecil had unleashed a full arsenal of weapons and monsters in trying to take Nolan down. Mark had recently split up with Amber, who already knew who his identity was, and that's something I questioned, and I didn't really like how that played out. Robot had taken on a human body form and reconnected with the Guardians, and then we had also resulted in the climactic end, which was the immortal clone being revitalized and having a brutal fight with Nolan. Nolan had chopped his body in half right in front of Mark's eyes, and then we had the original standoff between both Nolan and Mark, ending on that episode, We Need to Talk. So that was a very good cliffhanger going to this season over finale. So when we look at this season finale overall, I have to say this was a very immense, action-packed, spectacular and very brutal conclusion to the series, and I was very pleased because I always state throughout any television show or animated series that the season finale should be the most biggest episode. It should be the one that carries the most weight, the most impact, the most emotion, and overall be the one that leaves you with a lasting impression, rounding off what we would see throughout the whole series and leaving you with something to get excited for the new series. In terms of that criteria, this show did a fantastic job overall. It was extremely compelling as we go into the opening part of the story when Nolan was revealing the truth to Mark about the Viltrumite origins, when they were initially a superior race, eliminating the weaker individuals throughout their entire species first, but over time they were diminishing, so they had to go out and venture out and find other planets that they could conquer and help expand their race in the future. So this is all very compelling stuff. I love when we tap into the more mythology and the lore of the history of these characters, and this was fantastic. Great voice work from J.K. Simmons and Stephen Young in the lead role. So we escalated things further when we had the eventual fight between both Mark and Omni-Man, and we had really a brutal assault on his senses as Omni-Man was really giving Mark the full beatdown. Initially the fight had started in the fields and Cecil was getting all of these fighter jets and monsters to try and interject into the battle, but that was to no avail. And then the battle escalated more into the cities, and we had some great sequences, including where Mark was trying to save people over a falling building, and then that fell down and he was looking at all the body parts and remains. Really quite gruesome stuff. There was a truly vivid scene when Nolan was smashing Mark all over the city, and then he put his body in front of the train, and then the train crashed into them, and then we saw all of the passengers getting brutally chopped up as the train was crashing through. This is really intense stuff. We really are going into anime levels of violence here, and this isn't really too surprising because, as we all know, this is something that has run right throughout the entire series. Really, the end of the first episode was the precursor in terms of the R-rated violence that we would see throughout the show, and you are really on the edge of your seat here as Nolan is just smacking Mark down all over the city, and at the same time he was trying to teach him that this is really what his role was. He was sent out here to conquer, and he wanted to bring Mark up and help him over the conquest of the planet Earth. The one thing I queried was the sudden shift in Nolan's character, because as we've seen throughout, yes, he was brutalizing in the way that he would take out certain characters within the show, but for the most part he seemed very settled and very happy with his family life, and we all of a sudden come to this character who was this complete destroyer and had no contempt at all of human life and casualties around him. We had great scenes when he was telling Mark that these humans are worthless and they did nothing for their lives. Very harsh words, and even more so when he referred to his mother as just a pet despite being in love with her. So there was a bit of inconsistency, I would say, in terms of Nolan's character, but in keeping in tone with the overall story, it still worked and had a massive impact. What I liked about this episode as well is that it kept the central focus on the conflict. Yes, we did have scenes with other characters, the Guardians as well, and Cecil and Mark's mother as well, but it didn't distract from the overall conflict, because in terms of the overall story, that was what was most important, the overall final concluding battle between Mark and Nolan, and it never shifted away from that. Mark was vividly getting beaten down, and we see his teeth getting shattered and his eyes getting all swollen and pummeled, blood all over his face. And then we get that in very touching moments where we go to the flashback scene when Nolan and his mother were seeing Mark in his first baseball game, and that was the pivotal point when really Nolan, he realised that he was too much in touch with humanity to be able to conquer the earth. You know, his connection with Mark was just too strong, and that's why he flew away with tears in his eyes. So it made sense in terms of the overall context of the character. I wouldn't say it's a redemptive moment, considering the amount of people that were getting viciously killed throughout this fight, but it made sense overall in terms of its character. And I think that flashback scene was very crucial in what we'd seen overall in the climax of this story. We also saw what happens with the Guardians overall, how really now they've bonded stronger. We had that ending scene where they were cleaning up the blood. If you remember, that was at the carnage at the end of the first episode. Cecil had basically covered up the story of Omni Man, that he died in the initial explosion that we saw from the previous episode, and he made the various cleaning up, if you like, so that both Mark and his mother could carry on back in their school life. We saw the connection with Mark and his friends and Amber. So going ahead for season 2 now, we know that Mark is very much going to carry on his role as Invincible, and he's going to have the more typical group of friends who know his identity. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see various escapades where they help out Mark in terms of covering his identity and dealing with his various problems in his college life, as well as balancing his life as a superhero. So very interesting dynamics going forward for season 2. I did like the musical song. I don't know what it was, but that montage where we just saw everybody adjusting to their lives and getting back to normal. So again, this is just rounding of the story very nicely. So I was very pleased with this finale. A great way to end the series. And of course, just in case you didn't know, Amazon has made the very wise decision to continue this series for both a season 2 and a season 3. So if you do your research in terms of what happens within the comic book series, there's just plenty of material that they can explore throughout season 2 and season 3, which covers a lot more outer space adventures, and we've got various adversaries, very diverse amount of enemies that Mark can take on throughout the future of this series, and they showed that at the end where we saw that montage as well. So I'm pretty sure if you are a major comic book fan of Invincible, you would have been very satisfied overall where they're going to take this series in the future. And I think as well, if you are not a fan, like I wasn't a fan going into this episode for the first time, I think you were very satisfied. So I think overall it's been a very strong first season of the show, and maybe this is the future in terms of taking these comic book series and adapting them in animation form and staying true to the source material, which I'm always an advocate of. A great first season, very action packed, very spectacular. Yes, there was the R-rated violence, but that never superseded the story or the emotion or the characters. So a fantastic job, well done, a brilliant finale for a very strong first season of Invincible. So I'm very much looking forward to where they take the series going ahead for season 2 and season 3 overall. So those are my thoughts and quick review of the season 1 finale of Invincible. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you enjoyed this overall season? Let me know your thoughts, and do you think this is the standard that we should be going ahead forward if we're going to adapt these comic book stories, giving us a much more of an adult rated tone, as well as embracing the source material and still staying true to that comic book escapism and fantasy as well? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please also hit those like and subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality reviews like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.